Hi, this is Ms. Serratis, and in this video we're going to look at Mustang Consulting. This assignment is actually very much like a real-world situation. We have a company, the company is called Mustang Consulting, and they have kept track of their expenses for salaries, rents, utilities, etc. for each month. And using calculations in Excel, we're going to be able to calculate their quarterly expenses for each category, how much they spent in total per month, and what their yearly totals are. So let's begin. I actually went ahead and took care of directions number one. I'm sorry, one was to open it. Directions number 2, 3, and 4. That's all review. Just keep in mind that you can select the font of your choice, but make it business appropriate. Just some tips. I usually like to make my title a little bit bigger than the rest of my document. So my document is size 12. So I'm making my title 16 and then my subtitle a little smaller, 14. That's usually what I do. You do not have to do it that way. I'm going to start with direction number 5. Select row 4 and do bold and do center. So that I know how I know you've done before. But there's something new, and that's called the middle alignment, which is located above the center. Keep an eye on these words and see what happens when I click middle. Did you notice that? It put it in the middle of the cell. This button will put them at the top of the cell. This will put at the bottom of the cell. So these 3 buttons will align this way. These 3 buttons will align that way. So let's keep it at the middle. So that's something new for you. Now we want to apply a thick bottom border to row 4. So hopefully you remember how to do that when we did the Norwood Industrial. But as a reminder, you can either select thick bottom border or go down to more borders. Pick the thickest one. I actually am going to change the color. Maybe I'd like to do a red, but you're not done. You have to apply it to your sample text box. So I'm going to do that by just clicking here and then click OK. And there we go. We've got a nice thick line. Now we're going to start doing our formulas. We need to enter a formula here in rows 8, 14, 20, and 26. That calculates the quarterly totals. So up till now, the way we've learned to do the math is to start with a plus or an equal, and we do B5 plus B6 plus B7 and hit enter. And you know what? That does work. The answer is 7,500. If I hold my mouse over the numbers, I want you to notice what happens down here. It keeps track of the sum. It's telling us the average of the numbers that were selected, how many numbers that were selected, and the actual sum, which means the answer to an addition problem, is 7,500. So I know this is the correct answer, and this formula would work. However, what if you had to add 100 numbers together? Would it make sense to be adding all of them? B5 plus B6 plus B7 plus B8 plus B9, etc. That's too much. So let me delete that, and I want to introduce to you this button called the Auto Sum button. You'll be using this button quite often. So here's what the Auto Sum button does. If I click on the button itself, it starts a formula in. It says equal sum, which means the sum is an answer to an addition problem, and then it does the range, B5 to B7. And then I just hit enter. Yeah, it did it. So what you can do is you can actually put in a formula just by hitting the auto sum. And I need to do the auto sum for this one and for this one, but you know what? I don't want to keep doing auto sums, so you know what? Let me just fill handle it over. And if you don't believe me, look, it copied it. So if I were you, I would pause this video and fill in the auto sums for the quarters and then great. So we are now ready to move on to number 8, which is finding the monthly total. So again, instead of going equal B5 plus C5 plus D5, we could just use auto sum as well. So if you hit the drop down arrow, you have other functions, but we're going to stick with sum because sum means the answer to an addition problem, or you can just hit the button itself, which automatically defaults to summing. So this is saying, do you want me to sum this range that's highlighted? The answer is yes, so all I have to do is hit enter and then fill handle it down. So auto sum, enter, fill handle it down. Go ahead, finish and come. Perfect. Now it's time to do direction number 9, the yearly total. Now, some kids are so used to doing the auto sum at this point that they just go ahead and do auto sum, but now the computer's getting confused, so they select the whole column and hit enter, and they think they're all set. But I have a problem because that's not the correct answer. Because what's happening is if you were to do auto sum like that, you're adding this number plus its total. This is 7,500 plus 7,500. I don't want that. I want to add just the quarterly total. So in this case, I'm going to start with plus B8 plus B14 plus B20 plus B26. Notice I'm only adding up the totals, and you can see the different colors. They're represented here. Hit enter, go ahead and move it across. And now we are ready to apply all the formatting. So in the business world, I know these are dollars, and I know you want to slap dollar signs all over the place, but you can't do that. There's actually a way of doing dollar signs. For each section, you only put the dollar signs in the first row. So we're going to start with this first section, apply the dollar signs, no decimal. The rest of these numbers have to all be the comma style. And the reason why you do that is if you put dollar signs all over the place, let me just show you that. It clutters up the spreadsheet, and in some cases, you can actually be confused. See if I move the indentation, it could actually be confused for the number 5. So let's not do that. Follow proper business practice, which is only put the dollar sign on the first row. If you made a mistake, just hit the comma style, no decimals, and that'll take care of that. But this is a total, so we need to define, we need to put an underline. A lot of kids make the mistake of putting a borderline instead, but that's not the proper thing to do. The borderline is a solid line across. We don't want a solid line across, so I'm going to take it off by going to no border and hit underline. See the difference? The line is not across. So this section here is actually set up properly. Dollar signs in the first row, commas style for all of the other numbers, and then underlines. I recognize that these digits, these numbers here, do not need commas, but go ahead and still apply the comma style because it changes the way things align. Let me give you an example. Let's say that I were to do the comma style for this number and not for these. Do you see how these numbers don't line up? But now, if I apply the comma style, they all line up nicely, nice and perfectly. So you got to go ahead and apply the same formatting to quarter 2, 3, and 4. But do you want a shortcut? Let me give you a shortcut. It's called the Format Painter. And here's how it works. It copies this formatting to the area you select. So let me start by selecting rows 5 through 8. This is the Format Painter. Click on the brush, and then 11 through 14. So if you don't have good mouse skills, I don't recommend you do this. But if you have good mouse skills, go ahead and try it. I'm going to double click. If you double click, it stays active. There we go. There we go. And now I'm going to deselect either by hitting escape or the paintbrush. So now I'm almost done. The only thing I need to do is apply dollar signs, no decimals, and this is the finished product. If I want to look at the formulas, control tilde, I can see all the auto sums, and that is what I'm going to be looking for, that you did all of the auto sums, except should not have the auto sums on the bottom row. Good luck.